Welcome to yet another interview. Today I'll be talking to the CEO and co-founder of EvoEstate, Gustas Germanavicius. If you're not familiar with EvoEstate yet, it is a property crowdfunding aggregator, which means that you can invest simultaneously in multiple projects from all across Europe. Today we'll be discussing the main differences between individual real estate deals, and we'll also be answering all of the questions that you have submitted to us on P2P Empire. So without further ado, welcome to our P2P talk, Gustas.
Thank you, Jakub. Thank you for having me.
So I found it always very inspiring to see young and successful entrepreneurs. Could you maybe shortly describe the path, the journey that led to EvoEstate?
Yes. So we've co-founded the EvoEstate together with my partner Odris, and together with Odris we've been investing in real estate crowdfunding deals for quite some time. And what we came to realize that it's close to impossible for people to diversify in terms of real estate crowdfunding. That if you consider even the large platforms across Europe, they aren't really international. They only operate in their given markets. For example, 3 or 4 countries maximum. So if you wanted to diversify before, you would have to sign up at multiple platforms, which is a time-consuming job, and manage them and file taxes at the end of the year. And we thought we could really simplify this process. So then we set out to make it. At first we were building the product, understanding how we can operate here legally, what legal structures we can use, and later on we build the product and launch it for the public. Soon into the development of the company, I guess only after 4 or 5 months after launching the company, publicly to the investors, we have received the first venture capital backing. So we got investments from Startup Wise Guys. So Startup Wise Guys, for those who are not familiar, they are largest early stage venture capital fund, and they have been extremely active in crowdfunding space. Their portfolio includes companies such as Estate Guru. You are probably familiar with this name. Investly. It's a big UK business loans platforms, and now they have us. So that's a brief summary of how the journey started, and fast forward today, we are still continuing to grow, still continuing to improve, and still fostering the values of diversification, transparency, and easiness to use the crowdfunding platforms.
I think right now you have funded or helped funding more than 200 projects, right, all across Europe?
Yeah, I guess now we have reached the number of 300. We are helping to fund across. We are helping to fund 20 to 30 projects a month. So naturally, this number is increasing relatively fast.
That's quite impressive in such a short time frame. I think EvoEstate has been on the market for around 2 years, yeah. Right? All right, so most of the investors are familiar with investing in real estate loans, but EvoEstate offers also a variety of deals, right? Can you explain what kind of deals you're offering?
Yes. So for easier to understand, we should narrow down the investment types to 3 types. So one of them is rent projects, or buy to let, in other words. Second are loans. Usually you're familiar with those as they have fixed interest and they're usually backed with some sort of collateral. And then we have profit participatory or equity investments. So these are the 3 types. They mostly range in the type of business model the borrower or the platform is conducting. So if we consider rent projects, so for you to easily to understand, you are investing a capital in an acquisition of the property, and you get part of the shares. Others called shares, in reality it's loan contracts. So you still invest in loan, but it's profit participatory, meaning that your return is tied up to the cash flow of the property, and you get proportionally what you've invested to the rental income. And the second factor of this type of investment, I guess, which is often underlooked, is the capital growth. So always there's this question: did I buy it? Was the property acquired cheap, or whether it was acquired expensive? So you have to see until the project gets exited. But in theory, if we look at long-term periods, such as 5 or 10 years, the properties are likely to get more expensive, at least beating the inflation rate, which means that when the property will be exited, you will get additional return by earning capital growth. Then the second type, as I told you, the most common fixed interest loans are done in a such manner that the platform operates some sort of like a bank, but instead of borrowing the capital, lending the capital from its balance, or they lend it from the investor's money. So the borrower applies for the loan, the platform originates it, investors invest, and in return they get collateral. The collateral type ranges depending on the countries. In the Central Europe, I would say quite often in Spain, France, Benelux, and Baltics, you get in return the mortgage of the property, either primary or secondary. In Spain, it's usually used other types of guarantees, so either personal guarantees, pledge of property at a notary, and in other cases the platforms control the spendings of the borrower. So I mean, the one reason for that, why Spain is so different compared to the rest of the Europe, I would say Italy is also in a similar manner for the reason of their laws, just how their laws are structured. And for instance, in Spain, mortgage costs a lot. Placing a mortgage costs between 2 and 4% of the deal value. So you probably understand that, considering the interest rate that the investor should get, the platform fees, and then mortgage fees, the returns would significantly drop. So platforms are trying to come up with different models how to overcome it. And the last one is profit participatory loans, or so-called equity investments. The way how they operate, that you issue a loan, unsecured loan, to the borrower, and your investment return is not fixed. Sometimes they offer some guarantees that it would be fixed, but in most cases you operate as a shareholder of this business, meaning you can go both directions, meaning you can earn and you can lose capital. This is the highest risk, highest reward investment. It's usually every investor prior to investing in this project should get very familiar of the risks involved, and I would say to diversify well across overall portfolio to make decision to invest in one type or another.
So as a retail investor, how do I evaluate the risk of such equity deals?
So
what am I looking at?
So you can see the whole project description, summary of risks, attached documents. So I would say that the equity deals are more focused towards more sophisticated investors, and there you just need to analyze and understand the project. I would say there's no one silver lining. You know, you have to. Each project is different, business model is different, therefore the risks are different.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about investment term, you mentioned that for the rental deals it is around 4 to 5 years. What about loans and equity deals? How long do we commit the capital here?
So again, it really depends on the originator. As we are a marketplace, we have loans from 3 months to 10 years. So I would say that rental properties go from 3 years to 10 years, mostly for 3 and 5 years. Fixed interest loans go from 3 months to 3 years, mostly between 1 year and 2 years. And the equity deals, they usually don't go more than 24 months.
And investors always have the option to sell their investments in case they need liquidity on the secondary market, which EvoEstate is also offering, right?
Yeah. So this is one of the key ideas when we were developing the company, was that historically real estate has been a stable asset, but we believe that this stability, the liquidity, shouldn't be the price for the stability. What it means in reality, that our key task and goal, which we wanted to complete when we just launched, was secondary market. So we launched it the first month into business. So I would say that today our secondary market is very liquid, in most cases more liquid than the originator. You may wonder and say, oh, this is a a marketing message. It doesn't mean nothing in reality. How you can base this on logic? Well, if you look from a logical perspective, when you have smaller originators, they are funding between 1 and 4 deals per month. What it means in practice, it means that usually all of their investors invest in those deals. Maybe some skip second or fourth, but usually they all invest in those deals. So naturally, in our case, when we launched 30 deals per month, a lot of investors miss out on certain opportunities, and they simply we invest only, our investors invest only part of the deal, meaning that if the originator funds 100% of the deal, we help to co-finance between 10 and 40%. So we always have a much smaller supply on our side. So when people want to exit, I guess we provide a better exposure in terms of new investors who haven't invested in that particular project. So this creates the better liquidity.
Well, the benefit is also that most or many of the platforms, the loan originators that you work with, they don't even have a secondary market, right?
Yes, only one I think has, but it's still in beta version.
Mm-hmm. 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 In terms of popularity in your investor base, let's say, which kind of segments are more popular versus which are less popular? Can you tell us the percentage of how many investors invest, let's say, in one of each of the 3 segments?
Yeah, so I think if I would just have to see numbers, it would be 60-20-20. So meaning loans get 60%, rent and equity get around 20%, give or take. But if we look beyond the numbers, pure numbers, we have to understand that loans have a much higher supply, meaning that every month, if there are 30 deals, 25 will be loans, at least. So this naturally creates this big disparity between the numbers. But if we would look the invested amount based on the supply, so I would say that rent would have the most. There's simply just a shortage of them, and this would even the numbers. Something I would say that rent would have 35, loans would have 30, and equity deals would have, loans would have also 35, and equity would have something around 30 as well.
Investors on EvoEstate, they can start investing from just 50 euro into one deal, right?
Yes.
What is, however, the average investment amount per project when you look at all investors?
I would have to be really accurate. I would have to check this data, which I haven't, but I guess it's something around 400 euros. But then again, like average investment is not an accurate data, because I think what you need to measure is the median, because you have a lot of people who set up auto invest for 50-100 euros, and then you have others who invest for 2,000, 5,000 into a deal. So then again, the numbers look, if you look just at the numbers, they look one-sided, and then when you look from beyond the numbers, it can give you a much different insight.
And how many investors are currently active on EvoEstate?
Currently,
do you know the number?
Currently active, meaning the ones that have cash and are making investments, is 1,500.
Okay, good. One of the unique features on EvoEstate is also the so-called skin in the game projects, right?
Yes.
Where you and the second co-founder Andreas, where you invest into individual projects with your own money. We have received a few questions from the community, and investors are wondering what is the performance like of those projects that you invest personally in versus all the other projects. Can you reveal some of the results here?
Sure. There's also one thing that the performance is a very broad statement, and the question is, how do we measure the performance? If we measure the performance from the return rate, I would say that they are more or less similar in terms of other projects. If we measure the payment timeliness, meaning that how many of them pay on time, I would say that Skin in the Game really excels in this part. And I would say that generally, like, Skin in the Game projects are in the past and also today, they have projects which have 5-6% return. So this naturally decreases the average return, but in my opinion, and what we think about EvoEstate is not positioning itself, and this is not our goal to have highest returns in the industry or be, you know, highest yielding platform. I would say that's simply not what we are targeting to achieve, and at the end of the day, this is real estate. I think the right word would be how to position ourselves would be predictable. So meaning predictable returns that they pay on time. Even when the COVID-19 was happening, if we looked at other large real estate crowdfunding platforms, I emphasize large here because, as we explained, we helped to co-finance 300 projects. Our late projects haven't exceeded more than 3% of general portfolio of all the projects involved. So, and we are quite transparent about the performance of the project. So we have, if you go to evoestate.com/originators, you get a full list of originators, and then you can see how many projects are funded, how many are trading on secondary market, which projects are late. We are now actually improving this page, and currently as it is, we show late, meaning that including both interest and principal late, but now with new platform interface update, we will have them separated, meaning that it will show which projects are late to pay interest and which ones are late to pay principal.
Maybe let's go back to the skin of the game projects. What are the requirements that you look at when it comes to the skin on the game projects?
So if you're familiar with EvoEstate, you can see that we have risk scoring, which is being done. So I would say that, like, we don't have opinions to say, like, subjective manner to what makes or what doesn't take to be a skin in the game project. If our risk scoring scores A minus, A plus was never scored, by the way. So this, if it would be, of course, it would be listed as skin in the game. And we look at B plus. In rare exceptions, these are B projects, but in those certain cases, it's usually the reason due to some extended guarantees of the borrower.
Mm-hmm. So higher security, so meaning less risk and
Yes.
better risk rating. Those are the projects that make it to the skin in the game
Yes.
segment, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Since EvoEstate is sort of co-funding projects from all around Europe, how do you go about assessing the risks, the country risks in individual countries?
Yeah.
What is the process here?
So because we are a marketplace and we work with the originators, we trust our originators and the work that they are doing. So they carry out the risk projects relatively well in their respective countries. So basically what we do on the point of our risk scoring is not to tell that this is a great investment and you should invest, or there's no risk. That's not the point of it. The point of our risk scoring is to give some information about some general elements of risk, meaning it's all based on factual data. And when I mean about factual data, so if we look at the macro location, so it's quite straightforward. Either we have capital cities, lowest risk, large important cities which have more than 2 million population or are have very strategic importance to the country, and then we have small cities. Just an example. Or we have financial cost. What is financial cost? Financial cost is the total fee the borrower is paying, meaning that the amount of interest plus the originator fees. So like, let's say it's 15%, 18%. So respective to the number, the letter appears there. Then we analyze, for instance, LTV. Again, is it above 65? Is it between 65 and 60? It's all factual data, and it only indicates the level of risk. So it's purely informative nature, and this is just to give some better understanding without having to go deep into certain elements and Google for the investors.
In spring, I talked to the CEO of Reinvest24, to Tunnel, and he mentioned that EvoEstate conducts also due diligence on individual projects. So can you maybe tell me more about this process? Do you do it for every project or
Yes.
just for...
Yes.
for particular investments?
No, we analyze all projects, and basically, if everything is clear from the risk scoring perspective and documentation of the project, then it's all clear. When it comes to projects where there's not simply all information given, then we always ask some additional questions, like for instance in the Reinvest24 case, when they have the properties, we want to know who's the borrower, who's the tenant, what is the tenancy contract, and other elements. These are important elements to make the risk scoring, and not all originators present all this information. But I think that it's not that they are hiding, but some of them, they don't consider that information to be relevant enough for someone to make a decision.
So as an investor, I kind of get like another layer of security, because I know that EvoEstate also verifies all the information that you are getting from the loan originator.
You can consider that.
Mm-hmm. All right. We have also received a question about how EvoEstate scores, or what are the requirements to acquire or start collaborating with another new loan originator. For instance, right now, recently you have started working with Razors from France.
Yes.
What were the requirements to onboard a new partner on EvoEstate?
Yeah, so again, we run our risk scoring, which is also made on factual data. So the questions include: is the company regulated? How does the company hold funds? What are the security measurements being taken by the investors, by the originator? Meaning, do they place mortgages? Do they place mortgages? Do they place primary or secondary type mortgages? If they don't place mortgages, how do they ensure the security? We also analyze whether the company is backed by external shareholders, meaning that is the company backed by venture capital firms, private equity, or some large corporates such as banks. Naturally, when someone invests capital in those companies, they conduct rigorous due diligence, especially venture capital investors and private equity firms. And then, among others, we analyze whether the company is profitable, or if not profitable, does it have the sufficient funding to reach it, also headcount, and most importantly, their track record. So basically, we don't emphasize the number of defaults that much. We care more about the capital and recovery, because this is lending business, so defaults should happen and they will happen. The only question how successful the originator is able in recovering the funds.
All right, so investors are also wondering what would happen if EvoEstate goes out of business, since EvoEstate is just an agent, the middleman between loan originator, borrower, and the investor. So can you explain what is the process of what would happen if with investors' money if EvoEstate would go, let's say, tomorrow out of business?
Yes. So actually, one thing that you said exactly contributes to my answer is that we are a middleman and we facilitate the transactions, meaning that all of the investments that are being made by our investors, they are made on the originators' platforms. What it means in practice that all of the investments that one makes on EvoEstate, they are recorded on separate files. We had this question on Telegram group already, and we shared how you can access the links. This is public information about the records of investments. We of course don't disclose the names of the investors, and we don't disclose the user IDs, but we disclose the contract number, which is sent to each investor individually. So that's one option, that the claims would be settled directly. But second option is that we've already set apart 10,000 euros in the case of our default to service all the the outstanding claims to our investors. Because we are an aggregator and we don't really originate the deals, which is a very expensive process if we consider the originators. In order to return capital, in that case, it's a bit more complex, because you have to go to notary, sign the agreements, remove the mortgages. In our case, someone would just need to do transactions. And even if you consider 1,500 investors, already quite a significant amount of users, In reality, when you only have to make transfers, 10,000 euro allows to make really expensive transfers for much more people than 1,500.
So in case EvoEstate would default, another company, let's say a lawyer, would step in and facilitate transfers to investors.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, administrative company. So it can be a law firm, or it can be how is it called? Bankruptcy administrators, among others.
So let's talk about a bit of the different topic. We have seen in the past, or currently also, that some marketplaces and P2P platform offer dedicated IBAN accounts, and which increases the safety of investors' funds. Can you maybe describe how EvoEstate stores investors' funds and also explain the money flow from investors all the way to the borrowers and back?
So currently how it works is that the investor transfers the funds to the account, which is kept completely separate to our operational activities. And when the user deposits the amount, their accounts, once the funds reach the bank account, they're automatically assigned to the user account on EvoEstate. And when he presses to invest, the funds are being channeled to the originator side. And when the interest gets repaid, it gets back to the same account, and then it's spread to the investors. So this is how we currently operate, and currently we are integrating e-money provider, meaning that each investor will have a separate, completely separate IBAN for their transactions. So we are currently working on that, and we are estimating to launch this feature in full in first quarter of 2020.
Do you also plan to acquire a P2P lending license, or something that's being introduced right now, the investment brokerage license, for instance, in Latvia? Is that something that you can also acquire, or you have some plans to become more regulated?
So we definitely have plans to get regulated, and this is what we have wanted to do for a year already. If we consider the investment brokerage license, it doesn't qualify for us, because essentially what investment brokerage license means, and I'm sharing this with you because I'm a licensed investment advisor for MiFID II regulation, which means I can operate an investment brokerage firm. Basically, investment brokerage firm brokers investment financial products, meaning stocks, equities, stocks, bonds, ETFs, other fund units. The thing with loans is that it's not considered a financial product as stocks are. So what it means in reality, with our business model, we cannot get investment brokerage license, because it would be saying we trade stocks and bonds, but in reality we don't do, because loans are not bonds. When it comes to the P2P marketplaces, if we consider Mintos, Biventor, and others, those platforms, the way how they operate, of course I'm no expert to say, and I haven't worked in one of those platforms or built one, but the way how, in my assumption, they will deal with this investment brokerage firm, that they will issue bonds to their originators, meaning that P2P lending companies. In our case, we are not going to issue bonds to our partner platforms, because simply they cannot qualify for bonds, and and this is not a good fit for their business model. So in our case, facilitating the loan transactions between real estate crowdfunding platforms doesn't fall under the scope of investment brokerage firm. If we consider the crowdfunding license, which is different to P2P license, if we want to be extremely accurate, because P2P business involves the transactions, the loan transactions between individuals. In this case, I would say it's peer-to-business, which is called, the definition is crowdfunding. So now we have received the approval at in the European Parliament to implement this at each state level, but it will take, I would say, more than a year from now, and then I would say that this will be the time when we will get license based on those European-wide regulations. The way how generally licenses work is, it's not that you want a license and you get it. You cannot just go to a regulator and say, look, I have a really good business, my clients are happy, we make timely payments and we want to get a license. In reality, you have to qualify by certain elements of your business. So as I told you, with investment brokerage firm, it simply doesn't cut it. We hope that when the European crowdfunding regulations will be approved and Estonia implements it, we will implement it as well.
All right. A lot of investors are also wondering about statistics. I'm aware that EvoEstate has a loan originator page where you can view some of the data. But what about information about total funding volumes or repayments, like how much interest has been repaid so far, or what is the current number of investors? Where can we expect to see data like this as well in the future?
This all data will be displayed when we have updated the platform interface. So as I told earlier, we are improving absolutely everything to make it more clear, more easier to use. And one of the final things is the statistics page. But if you have any particular questions, like at this moment of the call, I have no problem sharing this data with you.
Now, we discussed already some of the data, but when I did research on EvoEstate, this data is kind of hard to find. I think a lot of investors also base their investment decisions on the track record of the platform, so it would be nice to have this data available as well publicly, right?
Yes.
All right, we have a few last questions from the community. Do you plan to have any upcoming loan originators onboarding EvoEstate?
Yeah, so we are working on a couple really big updates. So one of them is a full platform interface update. So it will add new features and new layouts. Basically, we've been talking with our clients and on Telegram, on emails and everywhere, and collecting the feedback what they would like to see. So we are optimizing the usage of the platform, so making it clearer to see payment schedules, full list of projects, improving secondary market, more filtering options on secondary market, auto invest improvements. We are updating absolutely everything. So that's one side, which has actually already started. So we are considering whether we want to launch the updated platform all at a single time or go stage by stage. So we will see about that. And second update, which I've already discussed, is that we are implementing e-money provider to open segregated accounts, which naturally involves a lot more than just connecting the API and launching them. There's a lot of processes to be updated and data to be collected. So we are currently working on these two really big things, and our goal is to finish with them, as I told you, in the first quarter of 2020 or earliest in very late December of 2020.
Do you have any new loan originators in the pipeline as of right now that you will be adding to your portfolio?
We have some, and we already have signed contracts with them. So we want to close all the new originators and conduct the final due diligence on all of them, and then launch probably all of them at the same time. So we currently are looking between 2 and 3 new originators. But I think that...
Can you maybe disclose at least the markets where they will be operating?
Yes, so all over Europe. So one is likely to be from Ireland, another one from Spain, and another one from the Baltics. The one thing that one should understand, I guess, it's not about the quantity of the originators, but the quality. And what we are trying to achieve with these new originators, all of the business models that those platforms have, none of our existing originators have these models, or they offer these types of investments. So we are always looking to offer more diversification, because in most of the cases the originators listed on our platform, they are already overlapping with each other in terms of types of deals and the business models that they have.
All right, Gustas, it was a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate that you took the time and speak with me and bring a bit more transparency into the industry. I am really looking forward for all the new features that you are planning with EvoEstate, and I wish you best of luck for the future.
Thank you, Jakub. It was great to be here.